This post was created in the days just before the shooting of Representative Steve Scalise and the injuring of 5 others at a baseball practice. Clearly, the shooter had problems. Yet that event has put into stark relief the extent of our political polarization, the frustrations of the American people, and the extremism that some of our leaders have helped to deepen, all of which underline the points that follow. DC is crazy, and everyone knows it's crazy. The president thinks everything is all about himself and that his job is a popularity contest won by appealing to extremists. Many of those in Congress think their job is about serving special interests. The Republicans, who speak loudly, are anchored in the primordial Reagan ooze, as though there is something holy about continuing to do what has never worked. Democrats don't seem to be able to do much other than be against Trump and Republican extremism. Meanwhile, we the people think it's about America and Americans. That leaves it to us to be sane about the future of America. So here are the first 7 of my platform points in bite-sized portions. The key is that the vast majority of Americans are in line with these notions, and our solution comes down to a 4-letter word. Note that my more aggressive comments are for the folks with big extremist microphones and not for the responsible legislators who only want to make things better for everyone. First point. A minimum of 78% of Americans believe that big money infects and distorts our democracy, and they want that changed. They want a We the People amendment that negates the craziness of Buckley v. Valeo, Citizens United, McCutcheon v. FEC, and the rest of the enabling decisions and legislation that allowed the rich to buy America and impoverish the rest of us. Said another way, Americans want Congress to prevent the buying of Congress so that instead we can have an actual representative democracy. Memo to lawmakers. I understand that the present system requires you to grub for donations and seek the big bucks donors. In fact, the system is the problem. In order to stop that, vote for the We the People amendment to the Constitution. Get on the side of Americans, on the right side of history, and end your begging for dollars. You'll be glad you did it because you know you hate begging for cash. Point 2. Just before the vote on the 2008 legislation that created Medicare Part D, Representative Billy Tauzin inserted an amendment into the legislation that prohibited the U.S. government, the largest purchaser of meds in the world, from negotiating with the pharmaceutical companies for better pricing. That sure was good for Big Pharma. Billy Tauzin didn't run for re-election that year, preferring instead to go to work for PHRMA, the lobbying organization of Big Pharma. They gave him a pay increase to $2 million per year. Memo to lawmakers. We the people are angry about the revolving door between Congress and lobbying. Clean up this sleaziness. Make the Tauzin behavior illegal and change the Part D law so we can negotiate better pricing with Big Pharma. Point 3. Until a few years ago, when the NRA went on a campaign to change the meaning of the Second Amendment, we all knew that violent offenders and those not mentally stable shouldn't have firearms. We still know that, but now over half of all deaths by firearms are suicide, and many of those in our returning vets. A gun within arm's reach makes suicide and homicide real easy, and we have to wonder if that shooter at the Republican baseball practice would have taken any action at all if he were not able to obtain an AR-15 assault rifle. Over 80% of Americans want sensible gun safety legislation, including a huge majority of NRA members. Memo to lawmakers. NRA campaign contributions are nice, but you'll be okay without them. And the cold, dead hands mantra may bring about a satisfying testosterone rush, but it's killing Americans. Pass sensible gun safety legislation. Fourth point, the FDA has dragged feet for years on an Obama-era requirement that restaurants display calorie counts on restaurant meals. Now the FDA has indefinitely postponed the implementation of the rule, which would require food manufacturers to list added sugars along with more visible calorie counts and clearer serving sizes. They've also refused to require labeling that would let us know if a food product contained genetically modified organisms, GMOs. Why doesn't the government want us to know what we're eating? Memo to lawmakers. You already know the answer to the question. It's the big food lobby. They fear that if we consumers know the crap they put in their products, that they'll sell less of it to us. So they incentivize lawmakers and agencies to stall disclosure laws. This isn't a key issue, but it is another case of big money buying our government in large and small ways, getting what it wants at the expense of we the people. Labeling changes cost next to nothing. Make them do it. Point 5. The American people don't want bickering over how many millions of us should be shut out of health care by the various idiotic proposals being considered. By a significant margin, we want Medicare for all, universal health care, single payer, call it what you will. The statistics show that Medicare costs about 25% less than care that is provided through private health care insurance. That's for equivalent healthcare procedures and outcomes. The cost differential is largely due to the overhead costs of private insurers, like marketing, sales expense, and really high pay for their C-level executives. Switching to single payer will make a significant dent in our bloated spending for healthcare and will save individual Americans a lot of money. Memo to lawmakers. Yes, it's true that single payer will put out of business many of the private healthcare insurance companies that make lovely campaign contributions. The buggy whip makers had a similar challenge 100 years ago when something better came along. Those formerly making buggy whips figured out how to get along, and so will our healthcare insurance folks today. Single payer is what Americans want, so your choices, lawmakers, are to continue to do the stupid dance over this issue, now being done in secret to jam it through the Senate, or you can get on the right side of history. Point 6. Trickle-down economics never trickles down. It was factually wrong when it was proposed, and it has consistently failed for nearly 40 years. Supply-side stimulus doesn't grow businesses. Demand does. But demand isn't stimulated by the upside-down economics of trickle-down. Let's be specific about what actually happens. Giving more money to rich people with the expectation that they will expand their businesses and hire lots of Americans and pay good wages doesn't happen. Making this worse is that because their personal wants and needs were already met before any tax windfall, rich people don't spend the new trickle-down money, so we don't get a boost to the economy. Instead, overwhelmingly, rich folks have put their trickle-down money into their investments, so that nearly all reward has gone to them. The rest of us have stagnated. Memo to lawmakers. Stop the dishonest schemes that only enrich the wealthy, like Bush's tax cuts, Trump's one-page tax plan, and the disingenuous AHCA, which would give huge tax breaks to rich people funded by refusing health care entirely to 23 million Americans. The tax breaks will not redound to the rest of us, as history shows. Come up with a progressive tax plan that makes sense for all, and don't ever again say trickle down or supply side, or we'll know you're lying. 7th point, everyone knows that our infrastructure is failing. We have 55,000 bridges that need substantial repair or complete replacement. Our roads need a huge amount of work. Our airports and trains are second rate compared to most of the industrialized world. The water and sewer pipes in all our major cities are over 100 years old. In short, there's a long list of what needs to be done if we are to remain the world leader. Memo to lawmakers. Stop whining that the Obama Recovery Act, the stimulus, didn't work. The spending you authorized was about half of what was needed for all those shovel-ready projects. And then you gave half of it to rich people in the form of tax breaks that, once again, didn't trickle down. The stimulus plan could have worked and our bridges would have been safer by now, but in your mania to ensure that Obama had no wins, you submarined it. America is falling apart, and you finger pointers with a big megaphone are a key reason why. Cut the crap and pass a major infrastructure plan. This is the end of part 1 of the platform. You'll find part 2 in the next post, and it will include the unveiling of that key 4-letter word. I'm Jack Altshuler.